Isabel. I am a coach for Childfree women, which means that I help Childfree women with their insecurities and any icky feelings that they might have regarding our choice to not be a parent. And I do that through the Uprising Spark, which is my brand. And I'm also the host of the Honest Uproar.
Hi, I'm Kristen. I am a writer, I guess. I have done some journalism. I had a child-free centric blog under the name Sylvia D. Lucas at the website or blog site Anonymous Was a Woman. And I'm a fiction writer, and whatever kind of writing I've done, I've always tried to incorporate the child-free perspective or characters who are informed by the child-free experience. Most recently, I did that in the novel The Age of the Child, which imagines a very child-free woman trying to figure out how to navigate a recently post-Roe v. Wade America.
Hi, my name is Lenora Faye. I am a child-free lifestyle content creator. I have a brand called The Bitchy Bookkeeper that sponsors events like the 2021 Child Free Conference. It's happening July 31st. So basically a week from the day this airs, I think. It's coming up quick. And I host Child Free Morning Chat on Clubhouse. So that is me. And we are the 3 founding non-mothers of Childfree Girls. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing what solidified our decision to remain child-free. Was there a particular event, a conversation? Maybe you're not quite solidified, although I think if we're doing this podcast, we might be. And also, just talking about your decision to remain child-free, has that helped solidify you? So let's kick it off with Isabel. What solidified your decision to remain child-free?
I don't think there has been that one event that I can say, oh, this definitely made me even more child-free than I was. I think it's just like a thing that happens every single day for me. I guess I can appreciate and be so grateful every day for the fact that I feel free to do with my life as I please, and not have a tiny version of me depend on what I do in order for it to survive and thrive. I guess sometimes, and this is sort of this is a little bit TMI probably, but sometimes I do see families struggling with children, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad it's not me. And I know it's a little bit wrong to do that because it's other people's issues and you never know what's going on because you never know the whole truth. But still, for me, it's a bit like seeing a family with young children or a baby or whatever, and just seeing how hard it is sometimes to get the logistics done. And for me, it's like, yeah, I don't want that. And I think I see that all the time. Like we all do. I think there's a baby boom happening right now due to the pandemic. I have no idea why people think it's a great idea to bring kids during a pandemic. That's a whole different story. And so I would say, yeah, it's like a daily thing. I have always like daily reminders, I guess. I cannot really think about one specific event. How about you, Kristen?
I think, first of all, just to address what you said about thinking it's a bad thing to say that if you see a family having a day that you're glad it's not you, I don't see anything wrong with that. Only because you don't know what they're going through. It's probably just a regular day for them, and it's just it's just a consequence of having a family. A kid acts out or whatever, but it's no different from like your dog whining when he wants to eat or something. And Lenora is probably like, "Ugh, I'm glad it's not me." But we're like, "It's just my dog. Whatever. She's hungry. I'll feed her." And I think it's perfectly fine and nothing offensive at all about saying, "I am so glad you have your life and I don't." I just, people choose the lives they want, and so many people see our lives and they're very glad they don't have them because they live their kids. They love their big families, and they think what we're going through must be incredibly lonely and miserable and spinstery or whatever. So I think it's fine. As for the choice being solidified, I don't know that it was ever on shaky ground to begin with. Like it was, if it's if it's a gut feeling, a gut aversion, a spiritual sickness at the idea of doing something, I don't think any solidifying is really needed. But I guess when it was decided was when, as we've talked about before, when it was presented to me as something that was expected. That's when I actually had to think about it, and I had to recognize that it was a choice. I got to recognize that it's a choice, rather. I understood, oh, this is something that's wanted and it's not something I want. So now what? That's probably about as solidified as it got, was recognizing it was a thing that was out there that I had to make a decision about.
I definitely feel like my answer falls along both of what you said, because it was that moment that I realized it was a choice. You know, I was 22 at that point. So when I realized it was a choice, it was like, oh, okay, good. That's the choice I'm making. Like it felt right. And it is part of an instinct as well. Like there's just that, you know, you don't know what the future is going to hold, but you just know that that's the right choice. There's just something quiet inside you that's like, yes. But there's something that you said as well about like it kind of being a daily thing, like daily reminders and stuff. And that for me, you know, is relevant as well too. And I guess the next question I had, which is actually, now that I think about it, also very much an answer, is just talking about your decision to not have kids, whether it's in you know, your writing, Kristen, or for you, Isabel, doing podcasting and doing the work you do with the Uprising Spark. Like, has that helped you solidify? Because for me, now that I've been doing, like, having the child free conversation for the last 3 years, that's like put the nail on the child free coffin in the best sense, if you will, because of the conversations that have come up and hearing different insights, and even, you know, the childless by circumstance conversation, like hearing all those different perspectives for me has really, because it was pretty solid before, but now, and seeing the need, like I think it's recognizing the need that that there's a need in the community or in the world for this conversation, that really adds another layer to it. So has that been your experience for either of you in your work?
You're going to be all alone in your child-free coffin.
That's fine. I live alone now in my child-free house. What makes you think I don't want to be alone in my child-free coffin? Like, parents don't die alone. You can't. Parents, you cannot take your children with you when you die. And well, I mean, okay, yeah, all right. I'm gonna keep.
You know what? Speaking of that, though, that's
like,
kind of
stop. She's gonna edit that part out. Anyway.
One thing
right. I didn't realize what you're talking. I get it now. Sorry. Okay. You can take them with you, but you don't want to.
About not taking kids with you, that made me think of how, you know, how parents or people who want to have kids will say to us, don't you want to have kids so that you're not alone, or so that someone loves you, someone remembers you? One thing I've noticed is that it seems like people who don't have kids, I think, probably have like if they have a good relationship with their parents, I think they continue to stay more in that relationship with their parents if they don't have kids than they do if they do have kids, and get very, very not obsessed with that, but very busy by that, and very, you know, very into them now being the parents and having their own kids to take care of. One thing I've noticed that seems kind of interesting is that, like, I have pictures of my dad around, and well, I didn't really have them around until he died. Now that he's dead, they're places. But it seems like people who have kids don't have a lot of pictures of their parents around, typically. Like, the parents just sort of fade away into the background once kids come into the picture. So I just thought that seemed, you know, to, like, parents want one thing for themselves, but then they also want their kids to have kids. And then once their kids have kids, the reason they had kids themselves kind of flitters away a little bit. It seems. I could be wrong. This is just based on very small observations and anecdotal, you know.
So evidence. has your to answer your question, or no, to answer to the, hang on. Your answer to the question does, because that's a good point. I see that myself too. Where
do you?
Yeah, I do, because I can't really use my personal experience as an example because my dad and my brother got closer when my brother became a dad himself.
Mhm.
But that's different. But generally speaking, I would agree that once the children grow up and have their own kids, the grandparents, if you will, they have to go figure out who they are because they're called for grandparent duty, yes, but that relationship, it's changed. It's like when our friends have kids and then all of a sudden, you know, less time for us type of thing. But your answer, you didn't give me your answer. Has talking about being child free solidified your decision, whether it's you talking it on here or in your writing, because that's a big part of it for you.
No, but talking about it has, like, writing about it and talking about it, like writing about it in different ways, whether in an essay thingy or like a blog form sort of argument or in fiction. The more I've done that, the more it has, they say sometimes, like, there's this little saying, right to learn. So every time I've written about it, I've learned a little bit more about it. I've learned a little bit more about how to express my feelings about it. I've learned how to calm down about it and not be so, like that, and just be more conversational and compassionate and patient. So no, it hasn't solidified anything. It's just more than anything solidified, helped me to solidify, and I continue to enhance, I guess, how I approach the conversation and how I present counters to things people say when they have problems with people who don't want to have children.
I would have to agree with Kristen. I mean, I think in my case, I think it has helped me solidify it, but because I have gathered or gained more knowledge about what it means to be child free and how there's like so many ways to be child free, right? And there's not one specific way to be child free that is the right way to be child free. Because I remember at the beginning when I first decided to embrace the child free lifestyle, I was a little bit of a gatekeeper. And so when you start meeting people in our community and then you're like, oh, okay. There's another way, right? Like we all have in common one thing, and it is that we don't want to parent any human being. But there are so many facets and so many different, I don't know, just ideas about what it means to be child free. And for me, getting to understand all of that from the people that I interact with. So it's not only with you too, but also with my guests on the Honest Upper, my clients in the Uprising Spark, and just in general our community. Um, it's been a lot more humbling, I guess, to be part of the group of people who are actually creating content for the community, because it's like you want to be able to convey all of these ideas, and it's so hard sometimes, right? But talking about it here in this format, for example, makes it a lot easier, I guess, to bounce off ideas of each other. And I guess that's the whole point of being part of the people who have a voice in this community, or who want to like have a visible voice in this community, to be able to you know show people that there are other ways, and also people who are not child free, like Kristen said, sort of like, here, this is who we are, right? And we're just such a complex community. At the same time, it's so easy to define us in just one word, right? So yeah.
And that word is selfish. That's the first thing that popped into my head because we're gonna start that conversation right now. I'm kidding. I
No.
wasn't being serious. I'm just like, that's the first thing that came, like one word. I can just imagine there's a troll watching this or listening to this right now going, yeah, one word, selfish. Take it away, Kristen.
Don't even get me started.
I wanted to ask you, Isabel, about, I mean, not to get specifically about your coaching clients and whatnot, but I just want to know, like, the feedback in the other spaces that you occupy and the other work that you've done is like, what about those people who have, like, what's been your experience with those who have come to you to ask, because they either they want to make a decision, I'm assuming, or they're unsure, like, what's been the feedback, that experience as you've spoken with them and gone, like, helped them in their journey, whether they've come to a decision or not, like, what's been that feedback there?
It's a very positive. I think because one of the main things is that I don't judge anyone. Like whatever they are in life regarding their choice to be child free, that's it's not for me to judge. And it's not for me to tell them what to do with their lives. And I think having those things very clear from the beginning and just kind of like guiding them through all the questions and everything that comes up in their journey. And then my clients making their own decisions based on what they have learned about themselves in the process is what makes it really special. But it has nothing to do with, I mean, I can, of course, if they ask me something, I can give them my opinion about something, or, based on my experience, based on what I have read, based on what we've talked about, based of, what I've heard in the community. But it's always like, just take it with a grain of salt because this is my experience or somebody else's experiences might not be yours, right? I think the important thing is just to keep yourself in a place in which you definitely do not tell people what to do with their lives. And that is something that came up with one of my clients recently. This person told me that she had hired a coach before, and the coach had told her basically to grow up and have a baby. And this person is still not she hasn't decided yet if she wants to embrace a chocolate lifestyle or not. So that to me was like, don't like people like that they're not there to coach you. They're there to reflect their own insecurities onto you. So just stay away from them.
And the infuriating thing, and I don't know if this is why Kristen all of a sudden got hot under the collar, but it's like, what the heck is this grow up and have a baby thing? I mean, come on. If grown-ups actually grew up and had kids, they probably wouldn't have children all the time. Like, it's that stupid assumption that growing up means having a kid. I mean, yes, we're young at heart, and it's but I mean, there's a lot of immature people that have kids, but that wording is horrible.
Well, she didn't say it in those exact words, but that
Yeah.
was what my client understood.
Right.
Right. It wasn't,
Yeah.
I don't think it was exact those words, but still, the idea behind somebody who's supposed to guide you, telling you to,
Mhm.
be a mature person, therefore mature people have children, it's just ridiculous, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Unless you can't.
Unless who?
Oh, unless you can't?
Unless you can't.
Yeah. Well, and that's a whole other ball of wax.
So, like, if
Chris,
you don't have a kid, because you can't, does that mean you never grow up?
and then nobody wants to go down that rabbit hole. The people that ask that question or say that to child-free people don't want to respond to that when it comes to those who can't actually have kids. It's silly.
Yeah.
So, Kristen, I had a question for you regarding your work. Has anyone reached out to you after reading something, whether it's your novel or articles or whatnot, and have you come across anyone that has said that after reading something you wrote, gave them encouragement, I should say, maybe not help make them decision, but like gave them encouragement to remain child free or think about it or maneuver through life a little differently?
Back when I was writing as Sylvia D. Lucas.
But let's talk about like the podcast, for example. We all see the emails that we get, the comments, the DMs that we get from people who have, either listened to the show, watched the show, or something that we've posted on social media. And, like it has been a lot of comments like that they feel seen, heard, respected, validated, even though we hate that word, that word is used too. When you read that, what we receive as Child-Free Girls, I'm just curious, does that give you a sense of responsibility? I mean, I know that we are like adamantly child-free. I'm not at all concerned about any of us changing our minds. I mean, yeah, really, I'm not. But does that do anything for you as far as like making you feel responsible to either keep speaking out, or is responsible maybe the wrong word to use? Like, okay, let me rephrase. What is receiving comments like that, whether it's Child-Free Girls or individual? What does that do for you in your own child-free journey and as a content creator? Isabel.
It fills my heart with joy. It really does. I think there's so much that we put out there not only as Childfree Girls, but also we do as our individual, like in our individual work. There's so much that we put into the world uh, regarding, of course, Childfree content, and we do it with the best intentions. We want people to realize that this is a choice. We want people to realize that they're not alone, that there's a whole community out there for them. So whenever I get comments from people saying like, I'm so glad I found you, I feel seen, things like that, that just makes me so happy because it means that whatever it is that we're doing is actually reaching people in the way that we want to reach them, if that makes sense. And it is very, I mean, I wouldn't say I feel responsible to like continue putting out content. I think it does encourage me to continue going, of course, because that means I could like reach more people, definitely. But I don't feel responsible because I'm not spoon feeding this to anyone. Like they're the ones watching our episodes or listening to our episodes or reading our blog posts or whatever it is. And so I'm just glad that they do find us, you know. So
I think anytime you can help someone and you know you might be able to help someone, you should. If you have an ability that someone can use, or if you have um, more more of a tendency to state a position in a way that somebody else might be quiet and be afraid to do that, I think it's kind of a duty because a lot of people don't, and so you have a lot of people in uncomfortable situations, bad situations, insecure situations, whatever. I just think it's a human kindness to help when and where you can, within reason, obviously. I mean, I'm not saying everyone should dedicate every second of their life to helping someone because then there'll be nowhere to help because they'll be gone helping someone else because there's always something you can do. But just in terms of responsibility that way, it does make me feel like what we're doing is reaching people when people contact us. And when I was, and of course it feels good. Like when I was Sylvia D. Lucas and I was just writing on my own blog and somebody contacted me to say that it had helped them. Of course I felt a sense of, wow, I got to be someone who helped somebody, but it was also, I'm so glad that person was helped. I mean, I think it's hard to avoid feeling a sense of pride if you've managed to do something good. Not pride, but just, like, wow, yay, I'm so glad I did that. But really what was most important was that here was one person who maybe didn't know they had a choice or might have been pressured into doing something they didn't want to that would have altered the entire course of their life. And maybe I'll help them not do that. And that they came to that conclusion and that they might have a better outcome is extraordinarily meaningful. So I don't know if it compels me to do this longer. Like, I don't know if that's what drives me. I think just the wrongness of the pressure is what drives me, really.
Yeah, I said the term use the term responsibility before, but now I realize, yeah, that's not necessarily what I meant. I like that you said meaningful because that for me is more accurate. Personally, like I've realized how meaningful it is for me, like just participating in the child-free conversations and community that I did not know existed before. And as to what fuels me to keep, well, first of all, it's fun. Like there's a fun, I don't know, there's just something so fun about just, and maybe it's because I'm an expressive person and I just like sharing, but also sharing about things that people don't want to talk about. There's something devilishly fun about going around saying, look, you don't have to have kids and you can have a great life if you want to, there's that element about it that's great. And because I'm at an age and just feeling secure in myself to say it, I don't get a lot of pushback really, or, come at me all you want. I'm a strong person. I can handle it. I think people know, like people don't fight me on it. So there's that combination that makes it really fun to, participate in this conversation in the variety of ways that I do. But even though I don't want to say I feel responsible, it's quite a calling, and a very unexpected calling, because I've never advocated for anything in my life. I mean, I've always stood up for people. I've always stood up for myself, and I've stood up for my classmates. Like, I was that kid in college that went to the dean and was like, look, our communication teacher sucks because she can't communicate. Like, I've always been that girl. When it's necessary. And if no one else is willing to speak up, I've always been the one to speak up. Like, that's been just something that I've done. Not that I've ever really benefited from it, but it's like you said, like, it's almost, there is a sense of duty sometimes to be that person that advocates. And for some reason, the child-free conversation, I feel a strong sense of, it's a calling. No one said, okay, Lenora, you have to go do this. So I don't know if I can say it's a duty, but it's a calling to stand up and advocate for the choice. And I think, again, I feel getting back to the original topic, I felt solid in my choice. But now, having really been immersed in the conversation, it just opens up myself a lot more to kind of go like, wow, this is a right choice for me. Like, really a right choice for me, because I don't think someone asked me, like, well, if you changed your mind, like, what would you do? And also then they said, I would still be your friend if you changed your mind. And I said, thank you, first of all. But secondly, I don't think that these opportunities, even like the podcast, would have come my way if I were going to change my mind at some point. I believe in I don't know what's the word, not the universe, but I believe that opportunities appear, like, that show you where you're going to go. And I don't think any of this stuff, whether it's the conference, the blog, the podcast, meeting all these people who have these amazing ideas to create things, I don't believe they would have come my way. For example, I thought music was going to be my way to go for, like, now I thought I'd be still a working musician, but that closed, that door, like it closed. It's not that it's going to be closed forever, but that made me go a completely different direction that ended me up here. That's not music related. And that experience makes me realize, like, if I weren't going to remain child free, like, if that was my path to eventually become a parent, none of this would have opened up for me. I really believe that. So, that.
But something else would have.
Pardon me?
Something else would have.
Yeah.
Like something.
No, exactly. I'm not saying that I would be lost in life. No, that's not what I meant. Just like regarding like the child-free topic specifically, if I was not going to be, like it just wouldn't have, something else would have come in its place. But this is the thing that showed up, like this community, the conversation, the awareness, or the realization that it's a wide open market. There's so many things to be created, as we all know. Like this is a very underrepresented community, and those of us that do show up and speak up and have been banding together to create things for the community, I feel like if that was not our destiny, or that was not right for us to remain child free, none of that would have happened. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. Well, that wasn't a question, that was just but that's just an observation I've had.
It did make me think, though. I think you were the one who told us, I don't know who these people are, but you were the one who told us once that there was like a couple who were like super well known in the space, very child free, and then they decided to have a child or something.
And now they're having a second one. Yeah.
So we can.
So there are exceptions to the rule, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
there are absolutely. Yeah.
This is the thing, there's a lot of places, spaces, especially on Facebook, for child-free people that are like child-free, and then they define what child-free is, right? So this is like super gatekeeping kind of shit, and they define it. And then one of the things that they say is, you don't want to have children. You never wanted to have children. You don't want to have children now, and you will never, ever want to have children. And it's like, how do you know what you're going to want in the next 5 years or 10 years or 20? Like, who knows? I've seen posts of people on those groups saying like, guys, I love like this space. It was so good to interact with all of you, but actually I changed my mind and I'm gonna have a baby. And I think it's just part of human nature. We have to know how to live with that in a way. Um, I don't believe that anything is like written. I guess like if you ask me right now, I don't see myself changing my mind. But I touch base with my own desires on a daily basis. I wake up and I'm like, am I still chill free? Yeah, I'm still chill free. And that's how I do things, right? It's like I don't want to have a kid. And like every day it's like, yeah, I really don't want to have a child. Ask me 10 years from now. I think today, 10 years from now, I'll be telling you I am still child free, but who knows?
Then there's okay, so to add on to that, there is, say a person changes their mind, or in this case you, then do you act on it? Because there's changing your mind, there's having this moment, or if you get to a moment where you're like, wait a sec, maybe I do want one. But then there's the acting on it, because like with anything, whether it's having a kid or something else, we can want things, but then do we act on it? Because acting on the desire to have a kid is a whole other whole other experience, because you can't go back once you're down that road. So I mean, that's, I agree with what you're saying. Like for me, I just personally, I'm like it's a done deal for me. It's been a done deal since I was little and looked at women in church.
Dude, I cut off my freaking fallopian tube.
Well, I was gonna say that too. Yeah,
they're cut and like snip and burned. Like,
but I mean, there's other ways of acquiring a child.
Yeah,
like
she's thinking about kidnapping children.
No.
Kristen laughing about our white man with candy inside.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me. I'm like, no, I did not say that. Just to clarify, I've already gotten myself in trouble that Isabel already has to delete something I said prior. So I don't want to get myself into a second hole.
No. Yes, of course there are other kids.
I meant adoption or surrogacy.
I know you did. And yes, of course there are other ways.
Good.
There are many ways to become a parent. Yes, but I don't remember. I think we had this conversation one time in our chat, regarding how I think we were talking about somebody specifically who said that they would change their mind if they found the right man. Like if I find the right partner in life and I love this person and this person asks me to have a child, I would definitely give him a child. And we had this discussion. It wasn't either one of the three of us. Like whoever's listening or watching this, it wasn't us who said that. It was somebody else. And then we had this discussion, and for me, it's just clear as day. I mean, I can fall in love with a man today, and tomorrow the guy's like, let's have a baby, and that would be the end of my relationship.
So, follow-up question for either of you to answer then, is it dangerous to solidify your decision regarding this topic specifically? Just because what you said, and because you've made great points, like you don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Why dangerous? Like, what do you mean by dangerous?
Well, okay, so right now in this moment, we all don't want to have kids. Like you've been sterilized, Kristen. You've gone 47 years without wanting a kid. I've gone 38 years without wanting a kid. So I mean, we've lived a good chunk of life without children, and as of this moment, neither of us want them. So is it dangerous to cut that? Like dangerous meaning, are you because people say, oh, you're changing your mind, don't be so closed-minded. You want to make that decision for yourself. And pardon me if this sounds like a bingo, because this is kind of where this conversation seems to be going in my head.
It definitely
it's like is it dangerous to make that assumption, like, nope, I'm going to be child free? Because you were saying about the definition of being child free, and I keep referring back to our earlier episodes where I was like, this is what child free means. Like I was so like hard line, and a big part of me still believes that, because I think because I want to represent people that have not ever wanted to have kids, because that still is needed. That talking or coming from the point of view of never wanting to have kids, that's my experience, and so I represent that in spaces that I hold, recognizing that child free is very everyone's got it's very nuanced. But is it dangerous then to say, I want to solidify my decision? Which it really would be meaning getting sterilized for one in a way. Maybe that's the wrong term to use, but why can't we make a decision and like that's it? Like we don't have to change our mind because people worry about that. Like younger people worry about that. They worry about changing their mind. Like, what if I change my mind when I'm 40? What if I change my mind? Because they really don't want to. So is it dangerous to like
I think they don't understand what and I don't think you can understand what, and I'm only 47, so it's not like I'm old, but I am older than say someone who's 18, obviously. And it's hard to imagine at 18 what 40, what 38, what 40, 47 is like. Like, I really think you do believe you're going to change. I think you think there's some weird chemical explosion or something that happens inside of you that turns you from who you are at 18 or 20 to the adult at 35 or 40, but there's no such chemical. I want to say a cool science word and it's not happening.
I like chemical explosion. I like the chemical explosion thing. That sounds pretty good. Go with that.
But I mean, that doesn't happen. You live one day after the next, and you're the same person from one day to the next, regardless of what people say about how you shed all a certain number of skin cells or blood cells in a certain number of years, and so you're a whole new person. That's bullshit. You are the sum of your experiences. They are what form you, and you carry yourself through every day. So it's not like there's an age or a hormonal phase that completely flips your way of thinking. This is not to say people don't change their minds or that they don't develop a different understanding of what having kids means, because surely people think they want kids and they change their minds at a certain age once they come to understand that having a baby means being a parent for the rest of their lives. Some people decide, I was kind of like into the romantic, hypothetical, theoretical baby idea, not so much the everyday parenting for the rest of my life idea. So people do come to new understandings and change their minds, or develop a mind for what they want. But I don't think it has anything to do with age. I don't think getting older is a risk of mind change just automatically. And why not? So you can solidify any choice you want. I can decide today I am never driving my car again. If I go out and drive tomorrow, so what? And I will.
Mm-hmm.
It made me think about the time when I quit smoking. Like it was like I used to smoke. I started smoking when I was 15. I was very young when I started smoking. And then how old was I when I stopped smoking? Like 32-ish or something? 30.
Same. Exact same.
And it was like, it was one day I started doing CrossFit, which is a whole different conversation. And then like my body was like, you can't do that while you're in this cult. So you need to stop.
That's why I stopped smoking at 22, because I went back to the cult.
Okay. Well, I was in a cult when I was 32 and it's called CrossFit. But anyway.
Okay.
It's going to ruffle
I want to have that conversation.
It's going to ruffle a few feathers out there, I'm sure.
Okay.
But I loved it. Anyway, and then my body was like, no. And so I made a solid decision that I was never, ever, ever going to smoke again. And so far, I have not ever wanted a cigarette after that. Like, it's disgusting. Like the idea for me, right? Mm-hmm. So, sort of like putting that example out there.
That is a good example. I mean, again, going off of what Kristen said, like it sounds, going to the having a kid or not having a kid thing. I mean, that's a mind change. And again, this is from an experience of not actually having that experience, but a gradual thing, starts with this thought, snowballs, whatever, checking in with yourself. Maybe one day it's like, I kind of get it. And the next day, nah. And then life just kind of keeps moving along. Because I mean, there are people in the child-free space who are like child-free content creators who it just kind of naturally happened. They didn't really think about deciding to not have kids. It just naturally went there, which is also cool too. Because And that's not something I thought about. Like for me, I feel like it was a definite decision because I didn't like the idea of motherhood. I didn't like the idea of being a mother. It just, no one told me it was a choice until I was old enough to figure it out for myself. But there are some people that it's just a natural, and I think naturally it would have happened. That would have been my experience too. But I question everything. So that was just what happened for me. But some people just go through life and either they may have partners, may not. It just kind of naturally went where they didn't have kids and they don't feel like they made the choice. They're not worried about it. They don't think about having kids. It's just never been an issue. And some of those people are the ones that say, well, why are you even talking about this? Because it's just never been an issue. Because some people, it's just so, to go to inside joke on our conversation earlier, it's just fluid. It just happens. Like, it just a natural thing, which I really believe in also. So.
Yeah, absolutely. In my trip, when I was kite surfing a couple of weeks ago, there were only 8 women in our group. Like our group of people was like 30 something people, and like only 8 of us were women and the rest were just a bunch of guys. None of us had children, either by chance or choice.
Wow.
None of the 8.
Did you talk about that?
This is
what were their ages?
Going.
What were their ages?
The youngest one is 35. And the oldest one is 47, I think. 46, 47, yeah. And it was very interesting to me, first of all, like to have that happen, because it's like 8 women, same boat, none of us had children, either by chance or choice. And then I think I had the conversation with one of them, and then it got brought up again at some point, and one of them, the eldest one, said, it just never happened to me. Like, it never happened for me. Like, I expected it to happen maybe, but I didn't force it, and it never happened. And I was like, I don't have children, it's fine. And so, talking about this type of people who are like, just go with the flow, kind of, in that sense. But they're okay either way, right? Like she was like, if I had a child, that would be fine. Now I don't have it, I'm fine. Like life is good. So yeah, it's interesting.
Do you think people force the issue? And I'm not talking about IVF or anything like that. I'm not talking about infertility. Do humans just force okay, I have this deadline. I'm 25 years old. I have to find somebody. I have to start a family.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Like, because what if we just lived without having that thought, that programming? I mean, there would still be people, there would still be babies happening because it's just, that's what happens. But I personally, I feel like the issue is forced, especially because we're groomed from a young age.
That would mean a whole reprogramming or even deprogramming and then reprogramming of at least Western human nature, Western society human nature, because there's this really strange keeping up with the Joneses thing. There's this really strange milestone obsession. There's a strange success marker thing, like achieve, whether it's family or marriage or prove my worth. It's like this very self-focused, I don't know, like just this need to claim something. I don't know what the right word is for that, but does that make sense?
It does. And that gives me another question to ask you too. I don't know where all these questions are coming from, but they are. Milestones. So you mentioned milestones. I know, Kristen, you've been married, and that's a significant milestone that people, strive to achieve. But we are women of a certain age. We're not child-free women.
Are you calling me old?
I'm just thinking of that. I'm just because we're child-free girls. And we're thinking back to that comment we got. I had to say it because it's just some people are like, oh, the name of your I mean, I think people have calmed down, but sorry. Okay. So, I mean, come on, we're 38 plus. So we're young, but we have a younger audience who are in their 20s. So we have not necessarily hit like, okay, milestones, I think of like, okay, so we've gone, I think we've all gone to school, like we've graduated school and stuff like that. But there's the traditional milestones of marriage, mortgage, kids type of thing. So for example, a lot of my peers, that is their checklist. I'm 38 years old and I have not checked any of those off because I did not have any of those on my list. And I enjoy that about my life. Like that's not my identity, but it doesn't, because I wanted to know, does that bother you or what's your thought? And I ask this because for anyone younger who's watching who feels like there's this deadline coming up, because I had that feeling when I was, approaching 25. I'm like, wow, I am not married. There was prospects to get married, but I wasn't dating and I was career focused and I didn't want any of that, but everybody else around me did. So you do get sucked into that mind. So my point for asking you too is that we can provide hope. Like, yeah, we've had different experiences. We may have owned homes or got married or whatever, but all those checklists, those milestones is totally fine going through life without having to experience that, even though everyone around you has or is or working towards it. So what do you two think about that? Are you okay? Are you really okay? As women of a certain age.
Isabel, you go first.
She's still calling me old.
I'm still gonna. Okay, I'm.
Listen, I was very, very worried about the marriage milestone as soon as I turned 30. Like when I was in my 20s, I was like, not yet. I want to party. I want to kiss all the boys. I want to go out. I want to be like, this crazy person that I was when I was in my 20s. Turned 30 and I was like, okay, time to find a husband. And I just put so much pressure on myself at the time. So much so that I almost got married to the very, very wrong man. And I'm just glad that at some point there was something that lit inside my mind and it was like, you don't have to do that, right? Like you don't have to have children, you don't have to get married either. Like you get to define how you want to experience relationships in life. And if this is what you want, if you want to really commit to somebody, you might as well make it someone who is actually worth your time. And I don't remember exactly what it was that actually made me realize that. I think I was just in a really horrible relationship. And at some point it was like, he was like totally like, he was abusive psychologically, like really bad. And I think it was just realizing that it wasn't doing me any good. And at the same time, it was like, am I going to really endure, God knows how long years of a marriage with somebody like this? So, I mean, the whole thing about settling, right? It's like women, I think we had this conversation recently as well. Like women, we need to like settle for the first thing that comes our ways because we need to be married by a certain age or whatever. We don't. We honestly don't. Like, I'm almost 40 and I am still experiencing my romantic relationships in so many different ways that I'm not even 100% sure right now if I want to get married, So it's like, I'm just happy that I get to just try those, like so many different things before I realize, or just, or make up my mind about what it is that I want to do or how I want to experience this for the rest of my life. So I think that pressure in the end, it serves no one. Like I remember being 25 and like meeting guys and I look at them now and I'm like, ugh, what was I thinking? Like, I don't know. I think we just grow up so much. I don't know if that makes sense. What do you think, Kristen?
I think what are you thinking does make sense, because who doesn't do that? What was I thinking at that age with that guy? The thing about the miles, I've never, I think we've talked about this, not this exactly, but something similar before. I've never been a planner. I've never anticipated anything happening one way or the other in my life. I've just kind of lived it. But and so that might make me automatically someone who can't possibly understand the pressure of the milestones. But I can say that nothing confuses me more. Other things do confuse me, probably just as much, but it's incredibly confusing to me that people, we're all here for, as far as we know, or as far as we're conscious of, this one life. Like this one life in this one body is the one you get. And for some reason, so many people want to spend that one life in that one body competing to have the exact same journey to the end. Like, how boring is that? Why do you want to do what everybody else is doing at the same time? You know, like, oh, they're having babies at 25. I better have babies at 25 or I'm behind. Behind what? You know, like, what's the finish line? What's the race to? There's in Point Break, I think it was Point Break, the remake, which was just a terrible, bad movie. But one thing a character says about the other character, because some character goes off somewhere and everyone else is worried about him, and he says something like, everyone has their own journey. And whatever someone else's journey is really none of your concern. You can only worry about them so much. You can only try to control them so much. It's their life to live. And your life is your life to live. And if this is yours, like you are the center of your own sphere in terms of the life you're living. So who cares who's having babies and who's getting married? Like, don't do that just because they're doing it. This is your life. Have fun with it. Do whatever you want to do. Do what makes you happy. Do what makes you curious, you know? Screw everybody else. Who cares if they're winning, especially if it's a game you don't even want to play?
And on that note, we're going to wrap because that was amazing. Seriously.
Awesome.
That was awesome. All right. That is it for today's episode. Thank you for watching and or listening. You can reach out to us if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for topics. Our email is childfreegirls@gmail.com and our website is childfreegirls.com.
And you can find us all over social media. We are most active on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, Clubhouse. So we are at Childfree Girls in most of these platforms, except on Clubhouse. You can find us individually. Our club is called Childfree Club. Come and join us. If you need an invitation, send us a DM, send us an email. We are also on Amazon. We have a book. It's called Childfree Girls, Comfort Food for Thought. It's right behind Lenora, and there is a link in the description of this episode, so you can go and grab your copy.
Our question for you today is, if your choice to be child-free needed to be solidified, what was it that solidified it, or how did you go about solidifying it yourself? You can leave your answers down there in the comments, or you can email us at childfreegirls@gmail.com. We do read all of our emails, so just so you know.
And don't forget to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. That would help us out greatly. And even if you listen on the podcast, head over to YouTube, find us at Childfree Girls, hit subscribe, and then you can go on your merry way. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. No, you say bye.
No, you say bye.
Oh my God, I'm leaving.
You leave first.
I'm going.
Bye.
Bye.